went to a very preppy boarding school, which I loved in Connecticut, called the Hotchkiss School. And my parents were kind of like, you will be experiencing the nonchalance of wealth. Yeah. Yeah. Which I was so grateful for.
The nonchalance of wealth is such a bar.
I know.
Hi, my name is Selema Masekela. I'll say it for you one more time. Selema Masekela. And you are listening to the What Shapes Us podcast.
Hello, friends. It's that time again. Welcome to another episode of the What Shapes Us podcast. I am your host, Selema Masekela. And of course, on this podcast, we have discussions about the incidents and accidents that shape us into being. And it is my pleasure, my high honor, to welcome a true multi-hyphenate. Like people say to me, Selema, you do so many things. And I'm like, yeah, I do a handful of things. But today's guest, Faith Briggs Rose. She is a doer of many things. Filmmaker, environmentalist, runner, mother. I didn't even cover all of the things. I'm pretty sure she has a master's, a PhD. Am I right? Master's. Sorry. Academics get very particular when you misquote their awesomeness. She's like, master's. But you probably will have a PhD before it's all said and done, right?
Maybe.
You're one of those people. Faith, thank you so much for deciding to come on the show. It's really funny because you and I met through a podcast, but it was your podcast in way back in the olden days, 2021. Mm-hmm. You reached out for your podcast. I think it was called Color the Trails.
The Trailhead.
Damn it.
That's okay.
Look at you. You always want to make it about race.
Called Color the Trails.
You always want to make it about race. There you go with the color thing again. But there is a Color the Trails.
There is a Color the Trails organization.
Okay, so I'm not a crazy person.
And ours is also about race, so yeah.
Right. It just lies beneath.
We're doing that.
But that conversation that we had bonded us together. And it was also cool because it was like, I think one of the only things I did in person during COVID.
Yeah.
And we did all the things, like the pre-testing, etc. You called me, you're like, I'm doing this thing at a really weird time. We're driving down from Oregon and we're doing this podcast. I was like, yeah, sure. Human contact?
Let's go. I think that's how we got a lot of our guests. They were like, you're doing something? Great. Including our photographer who we flew in from New York, and he was just like, yeah, van for 3 weeks, way under a rate that I would ever take. Sure.
I get to leave the States?
Exactly.
Sure. Those were different days and times.
Totally.
But yeah, I'm stuck. I've been stuck with you ever since.
Mm-hmm.
We're bonded.
It's true.
From that conversation.
Tethered.
And I said at some point I'm going to be able to flip the script and have a similar conversation with this truly incredible woman.
Thank you. I'm very honored to be here.
That means a lot because you got a babysitter tonight.
My husband has skipped basketball practice to watch the baby, and the boys are staying home. So yeah.
Shout out to Amiri. If you're watching this, thank you, brother. We appreciate you. I said at the top that you are many things, and that you have this very interesting space where you are. You tell me where I'm wrong in here, or where I'm filling the gaps. You are very much an activist and environmentalist, and someone who advocates. But when I say that, you don't do it in the traditional way. Like you're about helping build community around the outdoors for the people who maybe don't look like they should be outdoors activists. you also you spend a lot of time advocating for people to get out into the outdoors and play and experience and take up space and do all the healing that the outdoors gives us, especially.
Yes.
And then you're also a storyteller, filmmaker, podcast producer, and as I mentioned, mom of 1 2-year-old with one on the way.
One on the way. And 2 bonus sons.
And 2 bonus sons from your beautiful marriage. So you have nothing going on in your life.
I'm always grateful for the word multi-hyphenate, though, because previously I was like, what? Jack of all trades, master of none. And then someone was like, here's a gift, this word multi-hyphenate. And I was like, oh, thank you. That feels better. So
also, when you're feeling like you just want to zhuzh, you are also a Renaissance woman.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I do like that.
Yeah, so you could just...
I like that a lot.
Renaissance woman. Because I feel like people always talk about Renaissance men, but like you are a Renaissance woman.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Filmmaking, storytelling is how I figured out, like, how people can come together. You know, stories are always how we've learned from each other, and I think it's the most effective way. So that's kind of how I fell into that. And then, yeah, I think the environmental part, I grew up outside, but it all came back around. So I think it's all, like, 2016, I looked around and I was like, what am I doing? And then like a couple years later, I looked back at all the random parts of the trajectory and I was like, oh, those stepping stones actually kind of did make sense.
Where did the beginning of this start for you? Where'd you grow up?
So all over the place.
Okay.
But I claim upstate New York. Like, actually, hilariously, one of your other guests said Newburgh. Is it Osinski?
Yes, it was Lucy.
Lucy.
Yes.
When she said Newburgh, I was like, girl, bye. Who's from, like, what? So
We got another Newburger?
So my dad's from Newburgh. I grew up right near that in Cornwall. But I kind of went back and forth between like an hour, 2 hours outside the city and Massachusetts, and then a little bit of all over the place. So Oklahoma, South Carolina, Connecticut, upstate New York, like actually upstate versus, you know, like you're in this part of the state or you're in like Western New York,
right? Like,
which people forget about. And we grew up there too, so kind of all over the place.
Why'd you move so much?
My parents got married really young, and they did all of that figuring out together
In real time.
In real time with kids.
And y'all kids are gonna figure it out with us.
Exactly.
My mother and stepfather did very, very similar things. I grew up in New York as well as New England, both Rhode Island and Massachusetts. And then for their final act, at the end of my junior year of high school, they're like, Carlsbad.
Oh, for some reason I thought it was earlier than that.
No.
End of junior year?
End of junior year. We moved, got in a truck in April of my junior year of high school, drove that U-Haul out, got to Carlsbad High, was in there for like, I don't know, 3.5 weeks in this new weird planet.
Wow.
And then had a very interesting senior year. But I always say, like, going to 4 high schools and doing all those things and living in all these different cultural pockets ended up, while it filled me with angst as a teenager, was like forging me with superpowers that serve me today.
100% agree. Like, I think moving around a lot, you have to learn how to meet people. You have to learn how to make friends. It's a little bit sink or swim, but you also get to witness all of these different cultures. You might not have the language for it at the time, but like it all, you're like, oh, so this is how these folks live and this is how these folks live. I ended up going to boarding school the last 3 years of high school, which was my choice. And I went to a very preppy boarding school, which I loved in Connecticut, called the Hotchkiss School. And my parents were kind of like, you will be experiencing the nonchalance of wealth. Yeah. Yeah. Which I was so grateful for.
The nonchalance of wealth is such a bar.
I know.
That's perfect.
It was so freeing for me to experience high school somewhat from an anthropological lens, because I felt like, unlike most of the kids from like BIPOC communities or historically neglected communities, I wasn't trying to fit in. Like, I didn't feel like I needed to necessarily fully code switch to be there. And so I feel like I had a lot more freedom to be able to do the things I wanted to do. Obviously, there's social pressure because it's high school, but I didn't feel the need to fit in as much. And I think kids that, I was one of the few kids at that school, and may still be the case at the time, that wasn't in like a preparatory program that was trying to bring diversity into school. So most kids had done years of hard work and like summer schools and all this stuff to get into these feeder programs, to get into these schools, and they got there and it was like, we made it here, and then it was like, boom, culture shock, crazy, like no bodega, no mango, like where are you getting your hair done? Like you were in nowhere land. And I feel like coming not straight from the city, like had grown up mainly in the suburbs, so I had a little bit less of that culture shock. But I think I also had this kind of like anthropological understanding of it, which I appreciate, because it would have been really tough otherwise, for sure. Yeah.
The nonchalance of wealth. If you were to put that sentence into more words, what ended up being revealed to you? Because that is such a bar.
A lot. I think my dad, my parents didn't have the money to send me there. So it was very much like a scholarship, and I ran track, and that was a huge part of helping me get into that school. 400, 200, primarily 4x1, 4x4. And, I was coming from like a really good public school district. Like, we were amazing. Newburgh, Cornwall, Suffern, like we were often 1 and 2 in the state for things. We were always down at the Armory running in the city. Like, so it was a real strong track school. And that definitely helped. I think when my coach, DK, Dr. Kirby, the best guy, saw my like name and stats come across, he was like, what is this kid trying to do coming here? We have to get her. And I didn't know until end of senior year. He showed me a letter that he had written like in support of me getting into the school, because I had applied late after the deadlines. Like, my parents were moving. And so I was like, didn't want to be the new kid again without getting to choose. And I was a little bit like silly with track, where I was going to have to move to like my rival high school. And I was like, I could never. Like, I can't run for them.
I'll go to a boarding school before I go to that.
Literally Googled like boarding schools. And yeah, found this thing called the Association of Boarding Schools and applied. And my parents were like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm choosing my own school.
And you were how old?
14. Yeah.
That explains a lot, though.
I know, it does.
Now it's all making much more sense, everything that I said in regards to your resume, because at 14 to be like, Mom and Dad, I love you, and the curiosity of choices y'all are trying to figure out, but I'm going to be rooted in my own space, and also I'm going to go up to the top of this mountain to do it.
Yeah. I'm so grateful my parents were supportive of that. They were very...
My parents would have been like, what did you say?
Even now, I'm like telling
my
husband, I'm like, so boarding school, I got like 12, 13 years to warm up to the idea. But he's like, I'm not sending my child anywhere. But, maybe she'll want to go.
So they saw your track record from public school, and they were like, thank you, old gods.
Yeah,
new gods.
for sure.
She has been sent to us. This is the one that they wrote about in the scrolls.
Yeah, which is funny because, I didn't understand at the time that I was kind of like compromising my athletic career, to go from a great public school in New York where you run indoor, outdoor, you're going to nationals, you're going to pin relays,
against the best,
all that stuff against the best. I started running and swimming. I swam also. So on varsity in 8th grade. So I had 2 years of that kind of competition. And then I went to the Founders League, which was a wonderful, tiny league with like a short season and not a lot of competition or drive, and so I really had to figure
The
out.
nonchalance.
There was, yeah.
It was sort of. It was just like bathed in the nonchalance of wealth.
I mean, if you don't need it, you
Right.
know, like
Why
if
do you
you
need
don't need to run your way to college or like play your way to a scholarship or whatever it is, like you don't have to put the same, there's just not a need attached. Like you have to want it internally. You have to have that competitive spirit, but there's not this other huge piece of like, this might be my only path. And the nonchalance of wealth, what I'll say back to your question is, my dad kind of described it as like, how do those kids shake hands? What does it look like to know that no matter how you do in high school, you'll go to college? And even if you don't do well in college, someone will hire you at a family company. Like you're going to get a car and maybe it's an Escalade when you turn 16. You know, like there's a nonchalance or comfort that you can have. There's a confidence that you can have when you know that you're going to be taken care of. Like you have a safety net, you have a security blanket. And if you don't have that, it's really hard to navigate the world with the confidence as if you do. And in a lot of these elite spaces, the code is to navigate with confidence, right? Like you need to be able to move through these spaces. But if you don't have that safety blanket, like how do you?
Right.
So I feel like that's kind of what I learned being in those spaces, is how to show up in any room as if you belong there, even if you're like literally shaking. Like, you know, you just show up and do your thing. And I might like, you know, have my hands on the table because I'm literally shaking sometimes in some of the spaces I'm in. And I'm like totally experiencing wild imposter syndrome. Like, what am I doing here? But I'm like, here I am.
What did you get your master's in?
Documentary journalism. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you keep running?
I did. So I ran in college. And I went to Yale. I did D1, but like the Ivy D1, which I had to explain to my kids. This is like a little bit different, where you're still D1, but like it's a little different, the levels, you know? Like, so I had 2 boots and I was on crutches. So I went into school thinking I was going to be an international relations major. And microecon, my freshman year, told me I was not gonna be an international relations major because the struggle in that class. Had I understood how dropping classes worked, I would have dropped it. Like my GPA suffered greatly from that experience. So that was not my, and I had to I would have had to take like a certain amount of econ classes to be an IR major. So I switched to anthropology. So I thought I was going to do anthropology, and then there was a building that now is part of the art gallery, not the school, but it was not ADA accessible. And I would crutch up all these stairs to get to like this other required lecture of mine, and then down the stairs because one of those like stadium seating. And I eventually was like, I'm not doing this. So I dropped the class.
So because that building did not have access,
yeah,
and you just one day were like,
I'm not doing this
anymore. I'm double booted on these crutches.
Yeah, I ended up not being an anthropology major, but I had taken a Black women's in film course with this woman, Terry Francis, and she was like, "You're gonna be a film major," and I was like, "Yeah, probably not."
Like,
and then
did you not know where I come from and the ambitions that I have? Like, this film thing is just cute for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was always interested in like learning about my culture, right? Like anything that had to do with like Black women, I was like, I'm in. So I was a double major of African American studies and film studies.
That's dope. And I think it's interesting that, like, it sounds like at least that filmmaking, the weight and the power of the camera and being able to bridge gaps in how you could storytell, and also longer distance running sort of happened at the same time for you.
Yeah, in longer distance running, it's still so funny sometimes that became such a big part of my life, because I was a kid that I literally remember hiding behind the high jump pit during warm up.
Because you didn't want to run laps.
Because I didn't want to do the full 2 laps. Like I would do one and then I would hide and then like try to jump back in, as if my
Yeah.
coach wasn't going to be like, where did Faith? This was in high school, my
Yeah.
first high school,
But
by the
it's-
way.
yeah,
Not
but
by the
it-
time I got to college. But like, didn't want to run the 2 laps to warm up.
Yeah.
Which is, and even in college, I mean, to be,
Like, I want to run fast, but I don't want to
I don't want to
run slow. And the reason why it struck me is because the process of filmmaking is looks somewhat glamorous, but it requires a tenacity and a patience, and things hurt along the way, and what it takes to finish making a film,
Yes.
from start to finish, and edit process, etc., and finding story and pivoting is kind of similar to and grueling in the manner that longer distance running is.
Oh, 100%.
That's why I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'm like, huh.
You know, my high school coach, DK, they basically made me run cross country when I was at Hotchkiss. You have to do a sport, and or you can have like a special project and something once you're like junior, senior year. But there's like a sport requirement. And so it might be, I think they used to have something called strides where you literally walked around in circles. But I showed up to try out for varsity volleyball, never having hit a ball. Freshman year, I was like, I will do anything but run cross country.
Right.
And they were like, thank you so much for coming out. It was like, what are you doing? I think I tried to do, maybe I did try to do just the strides, like the walking thing. And the track coach was like, stop playing.
Yeah.
You're running
You're
cross
running.
country. But yeah, once I moved back to New York and I was living in Brooklyn, and I lived like exactly 1 mile point to point from Prospect Park. And so I started doing that. And then I did like a whole journey of trying to get my shins right and figuring out the right shoes. And I did the whole 5-finger thing for a little bit. Like I would hide those shoes. You know, when the V-Rum 5-finger shoes came out, I would hide them in my bag, and I would take the train to the park, and I would take them out and run like in circles on grass to try to get
your feet stronger.
My feet.
But you
stronger.
didn't want people to see you.
Did not want anyone to see me.
You didn't want to be associated with that crew.
No. So shout outs to barefoot running. It has really helped me. And
But also I did that in private.
yeah, I did. I did
that very much in private.
Yeah. But then, the distance thing, it stuck around that time. I guess I was 22 or 23 when I moved back to New York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it stuck around to the point where like you've run some really long races.
Yeah, I have.
Like, not casual. I just need you to, for the audience context, like we're not talking about chill shit here, so just like give me some of the races and distances.
Sure. Yeah. And I oh, okay. So some of the races. So in 2016, so I had this I ended up being hired as on-camera talent by Columbia Sportswear in a YouTube series in like 2016. So I've been working at the Discovery Channel, where a lot of my like environmental
Oh, what an interesting place for a filmmaker to begin their journey. Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So Discovery Channel, that makes sense for this weird intersection of outdoor activist, like real, not like in title, real filmmaker, and then also casual ultra runner.
Yeah. Well, so I left USC after the first year. Moved back to New York, was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Ended up working in restaurants, going back to grad school at NYU, finishing my master's there. And I worked for a brilliant author, James McBride, for 3 years, and like he was the best. And then he basically kicked me out of the nest. Like I got like a ping from Discovery, and he was like, you need to go work in your field. Like, you need to stop doing this. And so, because at the time, like, I worked for James. I worked at a restaurant. I taught after school. I was, like, learning motion graphics and doing little, like, projects there, just, like, trying to figure out what to do, how to do it. I had done unpaid internships at different film companies. I went to Ghana and tried to shoot a film there. It is yet lives on hard drives. I was just like trying to figure out how to be a filmmaker, and then I got this ping from Discovery and went and worked there in their budding environmental documentary department that only lasted a year longer than I did, unfortunately. But it was really important to spend time there because what I saw was not only the films that were getting made, but the films that weren't being made. And I saw a lot of films. I was like entry level, so I was like first eyes on all of the footage that was coming in, and I would like raise things up to my boss to be like, you should check this out, you should check this out. So whether it was like 50 hours of narwhal footage that just came in or it was like, you know, a community in the Amazon trying to stop logging, and very often those stories wouldn't get made, and it was because of, oh, subtitles don't do well for us, or oh, you know, XYZ region doesn't do well for us. The access to the cameras, you know, they didn't have cameras that would end up being broadcast quality. Like there were so many reasons, but I was like continuously being like, wait a minute. Oh, our communities are on the front line. Like I didn't know that. I didn't know that our communities were on the front line of environmental disaster all over the world, like in the States and all over the world. And so that like it was essential. Like I didn't know about environmental justice. I didn't know how essential it was for us to be in the rooms when environmental decisions are being made. And I learned that at Discovery by seeing what wasn't
getting made. That's radical.
Yeah.
And also like what a moment to realize like, wait, this whole environmental conversation features indigenous and Black peoples all over the world, and no one wants to, the place that's literally called Discovery says that they can't tell these stories of discovery.
And at the time it's like, because you never know what the chicken and egg of this stuff, but it's like people want to watch Naked and Afraid, people want to watch Gold Rush, people want to watch, you know, The Deadliest Catch,
right?
So there's only so many slots for docs,
right?
And when people have just watched The Deadliest Catch and then they're suddenly watching this film about the Amazon that they didn't know they were opting into, like your ratings go down for those slots, right? So what was getting programmed when there were very few slots, it just, you know, I learned a ton there. I worked with people that cared a lot, and I was really grateful for the experience. And I think it, and I lost one of my good friends right around the time to suicide. And I had this moment of being like, is this it, sitting in this cubicle? Like, is this what I'm meant to be doing, sitting in this cubicle? Because he was my friend that was like, you know, he'd text me just like memes, like real memes that would just be like some text on white screen that was like, when you do shit from the heart, people love that shit. Like rant, like on a Tuesday, you know, just like biggest cheerleader constantly. And so when that happened, I was like, is this what I'm doing right now? I think I had lost confidence and gained confidence as a filmmaker at the same time, because I'm coming out of grad school where some of my friends, like, first films took off, like they're at Sundance. And then we're at film festivals where I'm sitting across the table from them, and we'd be like, oh, I wish I was in your position. I wish I was in your position, you know? So I'm on the programming side, and I was like, well, maybe it's just my job, my trajectory is like supporting other filmmakers. Like I'm still making films if I'm like squirreling the money from the man and getting it to the people.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm good. Like I could be like an exec at a TV station, you know?
Kind
like,
of a bad producer.
Maybe this is what I'm doing.
Run this
but then like once I randomly ended up with this Columbia opportunity to leave an adventure for a year, it was like, I'm gonna go do that. So that is how I actually ended up ultra running, is the long story. I had just run my first couple of half marathons, which was like big deal coming from a 400 background. And then I remember, it's funny, I laughed in the beginning when you were like, academics are very serious about their titles, because I know a master's takes a lot less work than a PhD, right? So it's like, I don't want to, you know, so when I got to Columbia, my bio said I was an ultra runner.
Ooh.
And I remember going into PR and being like, hey guys, I've never even run a marathon. They were like, oh, that's interesting. Okay. And they changed my bio. Little did I know, they had me signed up for ultras later on that year. So I was signed up for, technically not an ultra because it's a 3-day stage race, but this amazing race in the Andes called El Cruce, which means the crossing. And so you run in like, you always cross the border from Argentina to Chile. And it's basically 20 miles a day, 3 days in a row, camping in between.
Ma'am,
Crazy Bert.
I don't care. I don't care who's in charge of definitions. That is the definition of ultra.
Totally.
Once you said 20 miles a day, without the border crossings and elevation, like, who are we kidding here?
Yeah. That was amazing. And I was injured going into it because I didn't know how to train, and I had like run myself into the ground.
And they're covering you like you are the star of doing this.
Camera. So a lot of crying on camera happened there. I was like, cool, this is great. But because I had done that, I got enough points to then run the shortest race, which is a 55K, so 34 miles at Ultra Trail Mont Blanc in Chamonix. So then in 2017, I ran that, which is my first like official ultra, which then led me into doing some like environmental advocacy based running. So we did another in speaking out against the monuments that were being rolled back in 2017 and 2018, which a lot of them are still on the chopping block, back on the chopping block now. But Addie and I, my podcast partner, which is how we kind of ended up creating the podcast. But we ran, I ended up doing the most of the running because of Addie's work schedule, but we ran 20 miles a day in Cascade Siskiyou, and then traveled down to Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument in Utah, and then traveled down to Oregon Mountain Desert Peaks National Monument in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and tried to average 20 miles a day.
For how long?
It ended up being 9 days of running, but with travel in between. So it wasn't like back to back. So it'd be like 2 days on, 2 days off, 3 days on, 2 days on, 3 days on.
Right. But still, on the days of running, we're running 20 miles.
We were getting lost and running 26 miles. You know, it was like, it was epic. It was amazing.
That's amazing.
It was like the most beautiful experience. I got to see incredible places. Yeah.
Is that when you think you really fell in a love with running?
I think I fell in love before that. I think I think once I started trail running as an adult, like actually Beacon, New York, we had this experience with my old team that we called Bin Trail. And it was like open to, and it was a bunch of New York City runners, and we'd go up and we'd camp and we'd run every day, and you'd like trail run in Beacon at these crazy trails. And I think that is when I fell in love with it, because there were trails that I had hiked. Like I had grown up at summer camp hiking, but I had never thought to run on those trails.
One of my favorite things about how you've harnessed brand capital to tell stories is that the stories you tell aren't compromised by brand interests. Like the brand knows that if Faith is telling the story, we got to hand her the keys and hands off. And they end up getting the win for it. But a lot of times, you know, there are plenty of brands who are like, no, we want to be associated with what you do, but like also make sure it's not this or make sure it's not that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge. I've definitely learned how to fight that battle a lot more. And then, you know, I don't always win, you know, and there's definitely moments of frustration or projects where like you try so hard to include a certain part or something that you know would resonate with your community, but they don't understand it.
Yeah.
Don't, you know, want to make sure it's resonating with everyone, and it's a fine balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you fight the battle. You win you don't win every battle, but you get to do more.
For sure.
I loved I think the Vasu piece that you did, Vasu Citra, who is a below the knee or at the knee amputee, skier, hiker. Now, last time I talked to Vasu, he was like, you know, I'm much more focused on soccer now. I'm playing like high level
Paralympic soccer.
I was like, oh, Oh, okay. Truly one of the most incredible athletes that I know.
Yeah.
He's like, if he had 2 full working legs, he would still be world class. Like,
yeah.
I went skinning with him for the. I'd never gone skinning before.
I went skinning for my first time working on that project.
On that film, Shizo. So when I watched your film and I watched how Vasu was just crushing everybody, I was like, I've been there. Because I went and did a day with him and Jeremy Jones. And the first time that they took me skinning to go splitboarding, we're at 10,000 feet. I'm dying.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm dying. And Vasu's like, literally like a billy goat.
He's a goat. I was just going to
with
say
one
that.
leg.
Goat.
And I'm sitting there like...
Well, one of our alternative titles for that project was going to be like 3,000 dips to heaven. Because you think about it, he's doing dips the whole time.
Yes.
Which is wild. But
that was with North Face. But yeah, incredible project.
Thank you. Yeah, that was really fun. And that took a few years to get the crew that we wanted, both in front of the camera and behind the camera.
It's a reminder that, like, there is no place in the world like America. But there's no place in the world like America for the reasons that they seem to be wanting to burn down.
Right.
What other country can you go to where literally you can meet, hang out with, interact with, get to know the culture of everybody on Earth in one place?
Yeah.
Everybody on Earth is in America. There's no other place like it. And that's when, like, my, like, American pride, that's when my nationalism comes up. Like, that's the shit that I'm like, yo, look at us. Like, you get hyped up during the Olympics for that same reason, because you're like, yeah. But yeah.
I think that's where some of my optimism comes from. Like, because I've had these beautiful experiences with, like, run crews for most of my adult life, and then I get to experience these, like, amazing community organizations. Like I'm so pumped to be in LA. Like, I've been living here for less than a year, and between Hike Club and Girl Gang Crazy, like, I'm just, like, meeting all of these wonderful, incredible people who are out, like, flyering about immigrant rights, and who are out, like, volunteering, you know, at farmers markets, and who are, you know, like, it's teaching me community, like, all over again in this whole new way. And I'm like, so I just got here and I'm already like, hell yeah, LA, which is, like, hilarious because I lived here before and could not, I was, like, so ready to leave.
Yeah.
And now just seeing how people are coming together in this community, like, tragedy after tragedy, one that is imposed by the government, but yeah, it's like I see these organizations and I'm reminded of, like, what you can do at a local level and how important these individuals are, and, like, what these small actions do, and so I think that's another one of the, like, current solutions is, like, to get really local with what you're doing, you know, and starting the ripple there.
It's rich, continual community because of how these spaces make a change in people's lives. It's not, I try to explain this all the time when I, you know, with people who are like, I don't understand what the big deal is. Like, the ocean's for everybody. I'm like, yes.
It hasn't been.
What you just said makes such logical sense.
Right.
But if you just spent a little time sitting in the discomfort of history, you would understand why that's not the case, and why I'm the only person you know that does the thing that you love. And that access is life-changing for people. Mm-hmm. Like, seeing what Brick is doing with Ebony Beach Club, and, you know, La Rubea on the East Coast, and and how we are all connected when we get to see like, oh, they're doing it over there and she's doing it over there. And like, oh, here's what the indigenous folks are doing over here. Like getting to meet Quana Rose and those folks, like that's what gives me like ultra buoyancy to keep going. And I think to your point, we need that. We need to be a quilt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All these organizations and folks are doing. We need to make sure that we are a quilt of community, moving forward.
Yeah, one of my friends says she's a hype woman for like the conservation space, and I'm like, I don't know what's happening with my career. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what's next, but I feel like being a hype woman for all of these organizations is definitely a part of it. I love seeing all, like, I'm not a founder. I don't found things like that's, but you founders, yes. Like I want to support you in that work.
I've got a camera.
I got a camera. I can help do the story about the thing you're doing.
Yes.
Like I'm so like impressed, which is like with community organizer. When you said activist earlier, I'm always like, I don't know about that word. Like, you know, like, but I'm just like, I feel like there's this, oh gosh, it's Deepa Iyer has this, it's like a map of social change, and it has all of these different, I think that's her name, all these different like places. And when I saw that and I saw Storyteller on there, I was like, oh, cool. Like, you know, because I feel like back in 2015, 2016, I was like out wheat pasting, you know, I was like at every march, I was like hanging on scaffolds, you know, it was like a very different way of engagement for me. And I think moving to Portland and feeling less connected than I did with New York, like I wasn't frontline in that same way, and I was much more doing like the storytelling, and I had some embarrassment or like shame about that, like why am I not out at every march, you know? But I think I like was like, well, actually I feel like this is maybe a more effective way for me to engage right now, without it being like, oh, I'm you know, it's like very hard on myself. I'm like, am I just doing this because I'm comfortable? Like, no, you're doing good work, you know, like that kind of thing. But I think like, yeah, being able to be a storyteller within what's happening, is hopefully a
not hopefully
contribution.
It is a massive contribution. And you know, going to all the protests, it's like an NFL career. Like that's young people's game, you know. At a certain point, like you leave the streets for the next way, and these kids, they're doing it and they're doing it different. But the storytelling is important, massively important. And I think I'm excited to see what you do next, with your camera. I'm really, really grateful for you sharing your story, because I think it's a really powerful one. Especially, I just love that the image of you on your crutches in two boots with damaged ankles, and just being like, I'm not taking this class anymore. No. And because of that pivotal intersective moment, you find a passion for film, longer distances, make all these things that you've done, affect people in the way that you have, and end up sitting on this couch.
Well, thank you for having me sit on this couch. I was so excited.
I'm really excited that we got to do this, and I'm excited for the next chapter.
Yes.
That you're in.
Thank you.
And that when this podcast comes out, you might be involved. Again, mom again. Mom again. But thank you so much. This was awesome. And we do have to make something together.
We will make something together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Deal.
I can't lean as easily now.
Yeah. You have 6 months worth of child. Yeah. I'm lazy.